Today on TOKKANTE, we're looking at how to start a new collection or how to redefine your existing collection by first looking at two guiding principles that will hold true no matter your budget, then why you should be looking at a three-piece collection to start, and then I'll prove my point by looking at three different collections of three watches at three different price points. Hi everyone and welcome, I'm Ben. So in today's video, we're looking at how to start a new collection or how to redefine your existing collection if it lacks focus. Watches cost money. This is not news to you. Money doesn't grow on trees, at least not in my garden, and watch collecting can be a very expensive hobby. Watch collectors need to be careful. They can't afford to buy watches all the time, and if you lack a strategy or focus, you're gonna have buyer's remorse. So we'll look at two guiding principles and maybe an overall strategy that will hold the test of time. So the first principle is to buy classic pieces. What is a classic watch or classic piece in general? It's something that has been judged over a long enough period of time, not necessarily 100 years, but long enough to be considered first class or outstanding in its class and very typical usually of its kind. And usually that comes also with a meaningful history. So in the world of watches, for example, the Omega Speedmaster is a classic. It's been over 60 years, it has barely changed. That's a classic chronograph. Staying with chronograph, the Rolex Daytona is also a classic. But also, you know, when I think classic watches, I think a Rolex Datejust. 1945, this is the typical classic watch that has been copied a million times. But you know, not staying with watches, if you think about cars, a Porsche 911, that is a classic car. Okay, so looking at the second principle, you should go with elegant watches, elegant pieces. And what is an elegant watch? It's one that makes you look and feel good. And usually for watches, that's something that fits your wrist. If you have a 6-inch wrist and you're wearing a 45mm Hublot Big Bang in red ceramic, you may love it to death, but I wouldn't consider that an elegant watch. Usually that's something that's going to be, you know, pleasing and simple. So careful, elegant watches do not necessarily mean a dress watch. It could be a sports watch. It depends on proportion and how it looks and feel on your wrist. So if you go with these two principles, elegant and classic pieces, you will never go wrong, basically. Those principles will hold the test of time. So now we know about the two guiding principles. Go with elegant and classic pieces. But how do you go about building your collection? Let's say you're starting a collection. What type of watches do you get? So the generally accepted idea is that you start with a three-piece collection. The first one is going to be your daily watch. I call it the Gada watch. You'll go anywhere, do anything type of watch. It's going to be either no complications or maybe a simple complication, a useful one like the date or maybe an annual calendar. That's the one you're going to wear in the office or you're going to wear every day regardless of what you do. So, you know, that could also be a dress watch depending on how you dress in the office. If you work in a very formal environment, a very formal dress watch might be your daily watch. The second one is going to be your sports watch. So that could be anything from a diver, it could be a pilot watch, it could be a field watch, it could even be a G-Shock. It's going to be your watch usually that's water resistant. That's the watch you're going to wear on the weekend, or you know, you might be wearing it more often than that if you're not working in a formal environment. The third one is going to be your complication watch. And that's going to be most of the time when people start getting into watches, a chronograph. That's what most people are interested in. It's a very useful, can be useful complication, but it's definitely a very popular one to start with. But it could also be a moon phase, it could be a perpetual calendar, all the way to a minute repeater. So now that we have a general idea of guiding principles of how to start a watch collection and the overall strategy, let's look at some examples. We're going to be looking at new watches only. Why? Because new collectors are generally scared of going pre-owned. They may not know how to go about it and where to buy a watch. So if you want to know more about that, you can watch my previous video, which will be linked at the end of this one. So I'll give you three different examples of collections, but the first one is the most affordable one, and it's the focus of this channel. We are looking at watches maybe up to $5,000 each. This is where the bulk of the focus of this channel is, and there are a lot of goodies that can be found in this price bracket. So let's say the first one we're going to be looking at for your daily watch. is a Zin 556. Amazing watch. Zin is a very respectable German watch manufacturer, and the Zin 556 is basically your perfect daily watch. It's an entry-level watch for them. You can get it either on a strap or on a bracelet, and for about $1,500 US, you can't go wrong with this watch as a daily watch. Now, if you wanted to spend a little bit more, you could go with the Tudor Black Bay 58. That's about $3,700 if you can stretch to that price point. But you can go on YouTube and look at numerous reviews of this watch, and they'll all tell you that this is the closest you get to the perfect watch. Of course, this is a different aesthetic. This is kind of a neo-vintage aesthetic, and that may not fit you or your lifestyle. This is why the Zin 556 might be a better overall daily watch for you. Now for your sports watch, let's look at water-resistant watches. The first one you should be looking at is the Longines Legend Diver for about $2,100. The Longines Legend Diver is one of those watches in the heritage line of Longines, and they have been doing incredible things in that line. This is a watch that is very highly respected by collectors, even though this is a very approachable price point. Another one that you should be looking at is the Oris Aquis 400. The Oris Aquis has been a very popular dive watch for Oris recently, and they just released the in-house version of it, the Oris Aquis 400, with a 5-day power reserve and a 10-year warranty. This is about $3,500. Now, if you want to stretch a little more, for $4,400, you're looking at the Tudor Pelagos. This is the antithesis of the Black Bay 58 because it's a very unapologetically modern dive watch, which on paper is actually better feature for feature than a Rolex Submariner. It's a little bit chunkier, it's bigger, it's 42 mil, but you get a lot for your money. Now the third category, the complication. Let's look at chronos. So the first one you could be looking at is Henhart. The Henhart 417 ES. Henhart is a German manufacturer. Once again, we love German watches on the channel, so you're going to be hearing a lot, at least one German watch per collection. This was the brand that released the first German chronograph in history in 1939. So this 417 ES is a re-release of a watch that was made for the German military in the 50s. That is $2,100 again, and the new version of it in bronze, I think, was just made in collaboration with Revolution and Waco. So this is highly regarded as well. And now another one that you could be looking at is the Longines Avigation Big Eye. This is also a part of the heritage collection for Longines. And it is kind of a re-release of a very obscure watch that they had in their history. But regardless of that, it gives you the very classic, 3 subdial registers of a classic 50s chronograph. It kind of looks like a Breguet Type 20, but for a fourth of the price. And this is a watch that is also very well regarded. So even if you went with the 3 cheapest watches in the collection, let's say you go with the Zin 556, and you go with the Legend Diver from Longines, and you go with the Henhart 417, you come up with a total price of $5,700, which is the same price as an entry-level Rolex Oyster Perpetual. But for the same price, you're getting 3 classic watches that will get the nod from watch collectors that even have Patek Philippe in their collections. For the second collection, let's say we could triple our budget. Now what are we looking at? For your first daily watch, you should go with a Rolex Explorer. This is the perfect watch. If the Tudor Black Bay 58 was, as close as you could get from the perfect watch, then I think the Rolex Explorer is the perfect watch. This is for about $6,500, and you will never regret it. You should always start your Rolex collection with an Explorer. The second watch that you could be looking at actually is a Cartier Santos. It's a classic. The Cartier Santos came out in 1904. It was the first men's wristwatch in the world. It was also the first sports watch, and it was the first pilot watch. This is now kind of considered almost a dressy everyday watch. For $6,600, you can consider this as an alternative to the Explorer. Now for the sports watch, let's look at a dive watch. You should go with the Omega Diver 300 Professional. For about $5,700, this is highly considered as a very, very compelling and a good dive watch for the price. Now, if you didn't pick up the Tudor Pelagos from the previous collection, you could also consider that as an alternative, but it's a very different style. The Omega is much more elegant, and you could use it actually as a daily watch. whereas the Pelagos is a more, it's a tool watch. For the third category of your complication watch, I would advise you go with the chrono and you go with the Omega Speedmaster Professional. This is an icon. This is definitely a classic. The 3861, the new version that was just re-released, is at $6,700. You're getting a new movement. You're getting a watch that has a lot of nods to its past, and this is a no-brainer. But if you could stretch that a little bit, stretch your budget, you could go to Glashütte Original, a Panomatic lunar piece for $10,600, or a Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Duo Day-Night for about $11,000. Those two pieces are a little bit of a stretch, but remember, you can get a quite hefty discounts for those two brands. Even at retail, even from an authorized dealer, you should be able to get something like 20%, sometimes even 25% off. So you can get into high horology for a very good price if you go with those. So if we went with the three cheapest pieces here, we went with the Rolex Explorer, and we went with the Seamaster from Omega, and then we went with the Speedmaster Professional, we have a collection for about $18,800 here. Now the third collection, just for fun, if you have over $500,000, actually closer to 600,000 US dollars, it's more of my hypothetical collection, but let's just look at it still using the same guiding principles and overall strategy for collection to show you that it works whether you have 6K or 600K. The first one we would be looking at for a daily watch is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo, the 15202 ST. In steel, actually I would prefer to get the one in titanium and platinum. This one is beautiful, it's $35,000. But the thing is, you can't even get it for that price because it's very hard to find at retail. Another option would be the Patek Philippe 5726, the Nautilus annual calendar. I like the blue dial of the 5711, and then 2 years ago I think they released the blue dial of the annual calendar. This is about $45,000, but again, it's actually very hard to find at retail. And for those two watches, you would have to pay a lot more on the secondary market. But hypothetically, I'd be getting one of those. Now for the second one, for the sports watch. Actually, it's kind of a dressy sports watch, but I would go with the A. Lange & Söhne Datograph Up-Down. This is the ultimate chronograph. Even Philippe Dufour has one. If you don't know who Philippe Dufour is, Google him. He's the ultimate watchmaker. And the black and gold up-down datograph is actually called the Philippe Dufour. I mean, not officially, but that's what collectors call it. This is $107,000, beautiful, beautiful movement, released in 1999 by A. Lange & Söhne, and the finishing of that watch was so good that it actually forced Patek Philippe to rework and upgrade their finishing. Now for the last category, for the complication piece, I will look at only one. This is the ultimate one. I want that one and no other. I want the Patek Philippe 5178G. It's a minute repeater cathedral gong. This is $415,000. This is an application piece. You have to apply for it, and the Stern family have to sign off on it to make one for you. This is really, the ultimate dream for me. Unless maybe you get a Lange minute repeater, but we'll talk about that in another video. So you get this whole connection for very affordable 560,000 US dollars. So now, how good does the first collection look at 5,700, huh? All right, so that does it for me today. I hope you got something, you got any value from this video. If you did, please click like, subscribe, share. You know the drill. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always ask yourself, what makes you tick?